This is Understanding Elon Musk, and today I want to talk about the big news here is that the Silicon Valley Bank went almost came in problems. They will not solve it in money. This because one of the reasons was that the interest rate went too high and they had still bonds that were lower, like 2%. People wanted the money back and they had to sell these bonds and they were not worth what they supposed to be, and they ran out of money, and if you run out of money and you cannot pay, you have a big problem. So this will be probably the same with other banks. So this is still a problem, but this going on in 2008. The real problem with banks was never solved. Also, I think that this is maybe good for the inflation, like Fed. The money now they are pulling out of the market. That's what you do when the Fed is tightening the money supply. And maybe they can push it at the same time into the banks to help them, because they in reality are causing the problem. They default. They make the bonds less worth. That means in the old days you get 2%, 1%. Now you get 8. That is it. Now you get 5% back, and maybe in the future more. So all these old bonds are worthless, or you have to wait 10 years to get your 2% back. And if you try to sell them earlier, you get much less back. So this is a very this asset you have to wait 10 years to get this money back. This 2% is not worth the money that's printed on. It is less, much less. So the only way I think that this can be solved is that the Fed takes those old bonds and buy them up, and with the money they use to higher the interest rate and compensate for this loss. Or I think that's the only way. Guaranteeing, I think what will happen is, to most people, it doesn't matter which bank you have, the interest rate with JP Morgan or by these small banks are now getting the same, because of the interest rate hiring. So I think a lot of people, big companies, will move their money to big banks. That means all the small banks that did the more risky work, because the big banks couldn't do this, they will go. They will get in the money problems. It will not only be these bonds, but also mortgages and other things. So there will be a lot of problems in America. This is, I think, now there are 3 banks that went down. I think more will follow. I see also contagious to England and Australia and other countries. Europe also will have these issues. So you can imagine if everybody who has bonds of 2% and now the interest rate becomes 5 or 4, they will have a problem if they have to get the money soon, within 10 years. So this is something also I think Elon Musk and other people already warned for. I think even Trump saw this coming. So what is the good news? The good news is, if you want to start a bank, and we all know that Mr. Elon Musk wants to start a bank again, you have to wait I think 3 years. You have to do IPO, all kinds of difficult things. So the best way to start a bank is to buy a bank. So what will happen? All these small banks, maybe small banks will maybe go bankrupt, or they will come in problems. And I think if Elon Musk waits time and he sees a very cheap bank that goes bottom up for a few millions, or maybe 100 million, and they have all the licenses he wants, just buy it. Buy that bank. Then you have all the things you can do with the bank. If it is cheap, he can maybe pay it by himself. Maybe I think Twitter doesn't have the money yet. But even if Tesla doesn't have a bank yet, it's maybe interesting to buy a bank. They have 20 billion. So if they can spend around 5 billion to buy a bank, this would be a very good idea. Also SpaceX or other companies of him, if they can buy a bank, it's always better to have your own money service. Later you can maybe merge banks or do something cooperation with banks, but if I think the problem is the bad luck is that he didn't have extra money for Twitter, or maybe if Twitter goes very good and gets some money, that he can add a bank to Twitter. I think he cannot do it, for example, buy with money from Tesla and then give it to Twitter. I think that is not possible. So maybe people will go crazy, but maybe he has to sell again stock of Tesla to buy a Twitter bank, a bank from Twitter. I think he has. If he does that, he has to ask the board of directors, one, and then two, he has to ask the stockholders. It is private stock, so I don't know if he really has to ask, or maybe ask his brother or family members to loan him the money to buy a bank for Twitter. Compensation plan, I don't know, but I think if this really goes bottom up for some banks, and I think that will maybe not 5 or 6, but maybe much more than 5 or 6, maybe a lot of small banks will disappear, but if there is a chance that he can buy one of those banks, maybe more than one bank for his companies, this would be a very good thing. This would be very, and I hope the stockholders from Tesla and his other investors will, maybe he finds an investor that helps with Twitter, that invests in maybe a new CEO that wants to put some money into Twitter, and they use that money to buy a bank. Maybe that is a very good idea, that he says, okay, I need a new partner that can that run together Twitter, and he gets like 20% or 30%, but with that money he buys a bank, and maybe he has even some money left over, because Twitter is he spent a lot of money for it, and I think the half of it is I think 20% is of that money you can probably buy a bank, or maybe much cheaper. If you can buy a very cheap bank, maybe for a few hundred million or $500 million or something, then you are very it is doable. I would advise him to do that. And if he cannot do it, then he can maybe ask somebody to join him with Twitter to invest some money and use that money to buy the bank, and then add it to Twitter and do all these banking things, options or features, integrate them in Twitter. That is doable, and maybe the end of the year or next year. That will be doable, that he can activate a banking system inside of Twitter. If he would do it standalone, he has to ask for a bank, create a bank, it will be years away. The same thing that he bought Twitter, he said, I buy Twitter to save money. If he would do created a Twitter, an application standalone, it would take 3 or 4 years longer. He said at the World Governance meeting that he saves between 3 and 5 years, or 2 or 5 years. So the same will apply to the bank. If he buys a bank, it will save him 3 years. And in a combination, Twitter and the bank will save at least 5 years if he can buy it all with the money. So I hope that Twitter, that the Tesla stockholders will understand that if he sells money, a few billion, to buy a bank, that they agree with it, or I hope he can find a partner that can help him. I was thinking about ex-CEO of Google, not Google, of YouTube. She wanted to, in old days, wanted to join Tesla as CEO or COO. Like Green Well, I think that would be that was at the time spoken of. But if she can join Twitter and she use a piece of her money, she's also one of the richest people in America, and maybe with some investors, and maybe with some loan, that she can buy a bank and add that to Twitter, and they can build up this monitoring system, and they can expand the Twitter with a banking application with it. I think that would be the big solution for Twitter. And as I told, it would be a great idea to add a bank. So when do you buy a bank? So this situation now, I'm looking, I'm trading Euro USD. No, this is not any trading advice, but I'm always studying the markets, and my idea is that this is just the beginning. So if he wants to buy a bank, I think he has to already, Elon Musk has to start to find a person or find a way to reserve some money to buy the bank. When a cheap bank or a bank he likes is available to be bought. Maybe he can do it pre-active before it goes broke or something, I don't know. But yeah, I think he has to become ready, or maybe he was already ready to start to buy a bank. And I think marking wise, if I look at the stock market, etc., etc., I think we have to wait still a few weeks, maybe a month. Let me check something. Let me check. I normally don't do this often, but let's do it this time. Yes, it is 5 or 6 weeks. So it is, I checked, it will be your 5 or 6 weeks. I think this will continue. Why? This has to do with technical charting for the Euro USD. Around this 4 or 5 weeks, there has to be a decision if it goes up or down. That means the dollar has to become stronger or weaker, or something will happen with the euro. At the moment the dollar is going down because of the crisis, and the euro is also a little bit falling. The yen is getting stronger, and the Euro USD is getting, the euro is getting stronger. Euro USD is going up. That means that the euro is getting stronger and the dollar is getting weaker. So we also don't know what kind of impact it has. The impact now in America is solved by Elon and the government to backstop it. They guarantee the deposits of the customers of the bank, so they don't lose any money. But still, the bank can go come broke. Maybe that's what I said. If it becomes very cheap, possibility to buy. But if you buy it, you have to buy also the debt. But they also made a fund that all these old bonds they will buy them. So maybe it will be even not so expensive, the bank. But I think the Silicon Valley Bank would be great because of the name. But I think that one is too expensive. I think that is a too big bank. Maybe Elon Musk can use a smaller bank to do the same thing for his for Twitter. I think he has to wait. I think the real dip is still coming, and that has to do with the war. I think this banking thing was a surprise. I thought it would be the war that would initiate this movement, but it looks like that this bank is this interest rate. So we have to also wait until what Powell is going to do with the interest rate in the next weeks. I think Friday there is a PMI of a labor something, a big news event that will decide if it will be 50 points or 25 points. I think it will be around 50 points. I think they will just continue. They will backstop the banks and continue this thing. I think the Fed thinks this is the only way to help this inflation stuff. He also said, so what is more important, losing jobs or inflation? He said inflation is more important, so people will lose jobs. But now even the banking will have a problem. I think if they have this tool to save these banks, there's now $25 billion for two banks. I think this 25 billion will be much more. I think they do now 90 billion a month, decreasing the money supply. So 90 billion on 25 billion. So it can be, if they have every month, they can save, what is it, 4 banks if they need to do that. And what that they do is they just buy back those old bonds with a low interest rate, and they hold those, they buy them for the normal price, so they don't have to lose the bank, and they keep them for 10 years. So they wait 10 years and then they will get the 2%. So that I've already explained. So I think this is a good solution, because this bonds problem, this interest rate problem is because of the Fed, and if they have a way to solve it this way, I think this is a good idea. But the big problem is the bank runs. People will run, they will see that it is not safe. What is it? Stable coin and crypto coin, that is all nonsense. I can talk about crypto. Crypto is the inventor of crypto never thought that people, yeah, this is not what he meant for the use of crypto, to use it like this. Also, I think crypto cannot solve this issue. I think if you really want to have and this is maybe some financial advice, look at gold and silver. That is still one of the biggest stable investments. You will not make money. You will not make money with silver or gold if you buy silver or gold, but you don't lose money. Of course, you lose money because of tax. Here in Japan, it was a good idea to buy gold and silver. Gold was better because you pay less tax. Silver, you pay crazy amount of tax. So at the moment, it's not advisable. Even if you have silver or gold, it is not even. It has to double in value to get any profit. But it is a stable thing. If everything goes wrong, the whole currency market collapses, then silver and gold will have a value. So take a few percent of your capital and invest it in gold and silver. And that is the whole idea, that if you lose everything, you still have 5% left. And if you are at that 5% will be then relative more worth than other people have, so you still have some value you have. I advise also to have this stored in physical form somewhere and not at the bank, because they can also, if it is on paper, you don't know how much paper gold there is. There's more paper gold than real gold, so I'd advise to maybe buy jewelry or silver stuff. That you can wear it and then still you have value with you. So about banking, when to buy. So I think it has to still a month, more than a month, until we will see some calmness in the market. In that time, before that time, between now and that month, I think more banks will fall. This is just the start. And I think Elon Musk and maybe also for his other companies, they have to look for an opportunity to buy some banks if it is possible. And I advise also, if he starts a bank, he has to make a bank that doesn't gamble with deposits. So you make a deposit bank. It means you use the money of the people that deposit money in your account, and you don't do almost nothing with it. Maybe you only invest a few percent, less than 10%, but that to pay the salary of the people that work there. And if you are smart, you can automate it, and if you integrate it with Twitter, then it doesn't have to have any cost. So you don't have to make any money with the banking application. It is just there to be as a service. And that is what you have to do at the bank. It has to be a service for something else, and it has to be almost, you don't want to make any money with the banking application. Yeah. So if you do that, then you would have one of the most banks that everybody wants. In the Netherlands, we had also a bank, a national bank, that only did deposits, and it did sometimes mortgages, and it used the government bonds to do that, the instant rate of it. So that was a very safe bank. It was the safest bank ever, because it was not doing anything with the money. The people who were working there were from the government. It was a government bank, and they didn't have to make any profit. It was just to make sure that people can deposit their money and they can pull the money back, and it was always there. It was no speculation at all. So this bank was bought up, was fused. They wanted to recreate it. Some parties, some businesses wanted to recreate this bank, and they were stopped. They don't like this bank. And one of the reasons later, when the research was like follows: the mortgage banks and all those banks, ING, Ambro, Rabobank, all those banks, the commercial banks, were afraid of this bank, because if you would make a bank like that, all the deposits, all the salary, all the paying of companies will go to that bank, because it's 100% sure, guaranteed, nothing can happen to it. And most of the people now in these times, you don't get any interest on your bank account in Europe, and if you just do it to paying the salary, or you pay for paying traffic to buy and sell stuff, you don't need this. Interest is not interesting, 1 or 2%. but you want to have secure that the money is there, nothing can happen to it. So this bank, if they would create it, this would be all the people, all the bank accounts they will lose. And the most important for a bank are those bank accounts, because they speculate with the money in those bank accounts. So they stopped, they tried to stop it. So what I would, and that is what Elon Musk also wanted to say, why the Twitter bank would be the biggest bank in the world, is exactly that is his plan. He wants to make a bank that doesn't make any profit. He just holds the money, and it does the traffic, the selling, buying. Maybe per transaction he uses 1 cent, a little maybe 0.1% you pay to the bank, and that is, so you pay to the bank with transactions to pay the salaries to the people and to make it possible that the banking system works. You don't use the money, or you don't create money to speculate with it to make more profit. If you really let the people pay for the bank, the bank can survive with people payment to the bank every year, like $10 or something, or you choose for 0.1% of every transaction you do that goes to the bank, and then you have that also already with credit cards. You have a small amount of money, a few dollars per transaction that you get, and with that money you pay the bank system of its own, the automatization of the bank, the people that work for the banks, all the salaries, everything. So you make it almost non-profit bank. That is the idea, and you put that inside of Twitter. He is correct. It will be the biggest bank in the world, because every country wanted to have this bank. These banks were there in the old days. They were all eaten up or destroyed by commercial banks. And so, if he can make a bank and on this principle, that it is not a non-profit bank, just you pay for it. So you know, I pay money so I can use the service, and I'm sure that the money I have there is not used at all. It's there, they just keep it there. If you can make that, and also for stock, if you buy stock, for example, and you buy other things, investments, you know exactly if you buy a stock, the stock is really there. If you do FX trading, you do really FX. It is not virtual trading and they skim off the top. You make an honest bank with no speculation with the money, no money creation, just how the bank was meant to be and how it was in the old days. If you make a bank that is accessible to everybody in the world, you will see that all the bank accounts of people will go slowly but surely to that bank, because that bank will never go bankrupt. Nothing can happen to the bank, because the money will be always there. It's just like putting your money in a money box under your bed. If a bank where the value doesn't climb because they don't speculate with it, that would be very needed, and people will use it. And I think that is the plan of the Holding X, and that was maybe the plan of PayPal. And I hope he can realize this. So I hope the problems with the banking will continue a little bit more, so that there are some banks that are very cheap to buy or to take over. And I hope he can buy a bank with Tesla, and I maybe can buy a bank for Twitter, and later fuse those banks together. Maybe also for SpaceX it is easy to have his own bank, and now it is a good time to buy banks, I think. I don't know what happens. Maybe the banks in the future will be a little bit different. Maybe there will be only 4 or 5 banks in America, but for now it is a great opportunity to buy banks, and I hope Tesla stockholders will understand that he wants to buy a bank now, because it is very cheap. So this is my talk. See you later.